Zawardo? With that accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally understand. Didn't she object at least once in the last game? I feel like she probably did. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed. What's the meaning of that menacing pose, Counsel? I'd like the witness to clarify something for me. Who? What? Where? When? How? Not you, Soseki-san. The query is directed at Inspector Hosonaga. At me? In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times. Yes, that's right. As I said when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon. And yet, that cannot be. What? Turtle can't believe it either. Get to the point, please, Counsel. In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. Oof. In other words, Inspector Hosonaga's testimony is clearly flawed. And so Seki-san, me? You claim to have caught a crab. No, you claim to have seen Membani-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes, I did. Wildly. But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point, that there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes. And? It's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once, therefore there is no way there could have been blood on the knife if that single stabbing hadn't already occurred. True! What exactly is your contention, Counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Soseki-san in fact saw was not the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant in fact withdrew the blade from the victim's body. That can't be! Excellent work, Susato. You exploded at them with that objection and then proceeded to pull them apart systematically.
Objection!
Well, this takes me back. Yes, I seem to remember your cousin staged a scene much like this in that trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection attempting to steal the show.
You're right. There are certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who only has half a head of hair.
Slander, my head is quite adequately dressed.
He is ready now. He's like, sweat, flop sweat all over my face, ready.
In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds, it makes not a jot of difference.
What? Why not?
Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the final blow. And it was that moment, just as she had withdrawn the blade, ready for her next strike, that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accused had already stabbed the victim. All you've successfully shown with your little display is that the mustached author is prone to moments of extravagance.
Ugh! I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade,
then we're back to where we started.
Sorry?
Consider this, young yokel boy. If the student girl is innocent, as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim? And with a demon's cold-blooded composure, too. The prosecution demands an explanation, and it had better be good.
Why did Ray pull out the knife?
Yes,
Yes, going for the jugular.
What does Father mean by that?
Let the court hear your answer then, counsel.
The truth is, I don't really know, but I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. She pulled the knife out because she knew she needed a weapon for court. Gotta have a weapon in court. Surely, so she could... I mean, save her life is the only nice thing on the list, but it's not a very good way of saving someone's life. Maybe she's a dum-dum. She's like, ah yes, knives deal damage over time. Once removed, you get better. According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant. That's correct. It's thought she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury.
Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer.
The point is, being a medical research assistant, oh no! She's not a dummy. She literally researches medical assistant? So she should have known better. Membami-san was compelled to act when faced with the wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life.
Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best we can expect of this young yokel.
Indeed. Ugh, is it just me? Or does it suddenly feel much colder in here? Your Excellency, if I may?
Speak, witness.
I would like another opportunity to testify. In respect to the slipshod assertion just put forward by the Yokel Defense Council, I mean. Slipshod? Face is slipshod.
An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not one iota of common sense.
It's even less than jot.
Very well, Inspector. I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the Defense Counsel's assertion.
Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. An ounce. It's like seven jots and 5 iotas. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Yes. Think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until a doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed. Oh, I see.
This is why yokels should stay on the farm, where they don't have knives. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. We play knifey spoony here in the capital every day.
Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so...
Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit.
Father, is it true what they're telling me?
We never had the talk
about stabbing people and then pulling the knife out.
Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics.
Ray would have been well aware of it.
If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways.
But then why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett?
I don't know.
Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have...
Susato,
Yes?
pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here.
Ah,
Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination.
oh, yes, Your Excellency.
However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my adjudication immediately afterwards.
I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard.
Hold it!
But the defendant had suddenly encountered somebody she knew, lying on the ground, bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently. I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this, strokes Turtle. The woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it?
Oh dear. You have a lot to learn about women.
Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views. Oh dear. Perhaps I'm letting my male persona take hold a little too much. Well, have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. Did have a motive, you say? Whatever the motive, it just isn't in Membani-san's nature to do something so awful. But she had both motive and opportunity. That's very hard to argue against. But you don't know the defendant.
And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law.
Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings.
With this fledgling to defend her, I would almost say I pity the accused.
So do I.
Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please.
Yes. Miss Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Membami-san.
Hold it!
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membani-san's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him. Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual.
Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membani-san's abilities.
Clearly, the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If Ray knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it.
Susato,
It's at times like this when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals. Press on everything. The fundamentals. Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it? Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already.
Perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too.
Ah,
Realize this is your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help.
examine the evidence in the court record? It's an idea, certainly. What should I do? I know what to do. Come to think of it, Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo were always turning evidence over and over in their hands. I need to examine things in greater detail, with space.
By the look in your eyes, I see it's coming back to you.
Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue. I'll do it straight away. Oops. Wait, they didn't show me this before. It didn't look like this before. What is this? La Carneval. Oh, La Carnival. That's the restaurant from the last one. This is the newspaper from Soseki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. From Yume's Medical Research. Father, isn't that your lab? What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen? It's this morning's paper that Soseki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? As embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard any such thing. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned his information? Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning this story in our paper this morning, was there? It's a highly toxic poison we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I'd put Ray in charge of the project. Ray? She was managing it? If what's written here is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow. I don't believe it. You need to read this article very carefully. Stolen from a laboratory. Even my father, who was responsible for the lab, knew nothing of the incident. Do I need to know anything from the front? Raucous England returnees tell all. Is this the interview with you and Soseki-san? It looks as though it was quite an exchange. Yes, he became a little over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand karate-chopped me on the neck. Is that what's happening? I do hope you weren't hurt. And now I get to examine this, and they didn't let me before. Zuardo. There's some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't a Yume University one. It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. That would seem to imply the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. Coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidences. The RM initials are very clearly engraved here. And the fact that Miss Brent was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is clearly a message, too. To identify her killer, you mean? I don't think there can be any doubt that this is a key piece of evidence in this case. If we take off the pen's lid... Why are you calling it a lid instead of a cap? Now the pen has no cap. Now let's unscrew the barrel. Wow, we're being very Are we gonna find poison in here? This must be the little reservoir that holds the ink. Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from a bottle up through the nib. Something wrong, Father? Just that there doesn't appear to actually be any ink in there, that's all. Yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. Perhaps I will drink. I will drink the mysterious liquid in the pen. Nothing bad will happen. Can't flip this over. Oh, they added this as evidence. I was like, they said we need to read the article, and then they didn't let me read it. Following a lecture at Yume by Soseki Natsume on 11th August, it's come to light that a very disturbing incident took place, a deadly poison being secretly developed in the university's forensic science laboratory was stolen. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or from... Okay, hold on. So this is not the same as... It mattered for the other one. It was like, oh, it can only go in through a wound. And they were like, oh, but he just had dental work done, so he had an open wound in his mouth. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have to be consulted. Why? Why is this being worked on? Onset of symptoms occurs within minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. Its symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It's apparently a entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to have been commissioned by the military. Very unconcerning. What was the question we were trying to, They said, like, make sure you examine everything in the court record.
Hold it!
We'll keep pressing. You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean if you use due care and attention, it would be alright? I wouldn't have thought this needed spelling out, really, but the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it. Oh, well, thank you for such a thorough explanation.
You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath.
Ugh.
Back to the witness testimony, please.
Hold it!
But what if the defendant was a dum-dum? In that case, there's an obvious explanation here, which is... Clearly, the defendant, Rei Mambani-san, does not possess an ounce of sense. We actually went there. What do you think about that, Professor Mikotoba?
I'm not sure you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense.
Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer.
I don't know. Young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it. Careful, Counsel. A lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing.
You don't have common sense? Straight to jail. Oh dear. That recoiled on me rather badly.
That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn.
Hopefully you can see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membani-san would certainly have been aware of it. A motive for killing the victim. We don't have anything that seems to contradict any of these. The young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago was the defendant's son. I mean, do we just jump straight to saying she was not killed by stabbing? Footy prints. There's another article on here. Doing this already updated the description, which I think is all we needed to do. Like, this thing about, okay, she was killed by the poison that was stolen is a big deal, but I don't see that it contradicts. I mean, there's only so many things, but you know, I don't want to have to die and restart from just throwing random objects at the witness stand. What's that? It's not like the poison was stolen 9 months ago by Dr. Wilson or anything like that. Alright, I guess let's press on everything again, because sometimes pressing a second... That would be a heck of a thing to put so early in the first case. Why isn't this skippable? Oh, it is. You can't do it with spacebar. You have to hold. Right click, or left click and hold. Oops.
Hold it!
Just zip through all of this again to see if there's something that a second press reveals.
Hold it! Hold it! Attention! Hold it!
Feels silly to ask for a refresher, but is there a mechanic in this game that I don't know about? Spartan guidance is what I need. RM, there they are, clearly engraved. Look at a piece of evidence from all angles. You should have a good look at everything. Make sure you have nice clues. Yes! I already looked at these. The fact that they showed the pen, I guess I'm just gonna try presenting the pen here.
Objection!
That's not right. The witness's statement is definitively contradicted by this piece of evidence. Blam. Reconciter.
Objection!
What about the witness's last statement there? Well, though VOD watchers skip 50 minutes ahead.
Objection!
Oh. Alright, well, we're close to eliminating the pen as a potential piece of evidence.
Objection!
That's it. We thrust the pen at the judge, killing him. It still has poison in it. Put me in place.
Objection!
So it's not the pen. Even though they were like, look at the pen. No reasonable doubt remains. Therefore, I hereby pronounce the defendant Ray Mambami. Court is adjourned. I should also save the game. We haven't saved once since I started. Oh, and now we lost the progress. You can't examine things until he tells you that it's possible to do? Maybe it's this. The death would have occurred within minutes, so... What does that contradict?
Objection!
No. I may just have to spam every possibility. I don't even remotely see what the answer could be. Maybe it'll be obvious in hindsight. Oops.
Objection!
Hopefully it's not that there's something I still need to examine and that all of these are going to be wrong because I've missed clicking on something.
Objection!
That's not it.
Objection!
Another game over. I suppose this time around, after I've examined everything, I'll create a save so I can resume from the save instead. This is wild. We've never had game overs in case one of a case. I mean, of a game. Doo-ba-doo-doo-doo-doo. Should I examine this a second time? Can't believe you knew nothing about this, Father. Nothing was reported to me. It seems an attempted cover-up was at play. This is extraordinary. What I'd really like to know is how a reporter found out about it. Well, however it happened, I have to take full responsibility. There'll be serious consequences for sure. Oh, Father. I mean, I figured that meant this isn't really her pen, but maybe it means that she doesn't actually work at the university? But no, we already tried, tried presenting the pen everywhere. Oh, I was supposed to save. Oops.
Objection!
I am... Not that I expected that that would be the correct one, but... What?
Hold it!
Oh, didn't mean to press.
Objection! Objection! Objection!
So there was a good reason to pull the knife out, and that is that she was poisoned? There is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound. What?
Ha! The yokel not only has a poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified?
It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial
The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance in this case.
But... Prosecutor Ouchie, you will let the defense speak.
But a newspaper article? The court cannot rely on the kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry.
Counsel for the defense. I'm going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion.
Your Excellency.
Yes, of course. Thank you. I would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled is because she was already dead? Stolen. Fatal within minutes. Did she think there was poison on the blade, and that's why she pulled it out? Impaired breathing ending with acute contraction. So I guess she found her dead or dying, and I guess I'm... And then under why is the poison being developed, that's where it says what the symptoms are, which is weird. I'm not sure I understand why this means that she pulled the knife, so I'm just gonna pick that one. According to the article, the development of the poison was requested by the military. Yes. Troubling revelation indeed. Oh, it's very worrying.
And yet even more worrying is how this yokel has tried to manipulate the court with nothing more than rumors.
Ugh. But I feel sure Ray had a good reason for her actions. I feel sure the explanation is somewhere in this newspaper article. Try read it, fuck you. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with the poison, it's rapidly absorbed and causes death within minutes. Are you suggesting? If the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Mabani-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible? What? Did she think it was a time knife? Or should I say a time delay knife? There's a countdown on the handle before the poison was released? Yes, the truth is, it was a what? An attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body.
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense. I agree. Every bit. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body to not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility.
Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document.
Well, that's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant.
Objection!
This is clearly desperation. The weasel's last breaking of wind.
Just call me a freaking ferret fart? What are you talking about? Kamaitachi?
Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway.
In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicions then, or the argument makes no sense.
Exactly. Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it? Yokel?
Why did Ray suspect the stolen poison was involved? If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds. I'll give you a whole pound of grounds. That's why they call it a ground pound. What?
You can't possibly.
From your expression, counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. Naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware. Words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence, such as an unsubstantiated newspaper rumor, which is what I'm going to submit now, saying that the pupils were dilated. Or no, I guess the autopsy. I've seen it many times from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. Present the proof to the court now.
Take that!
I would ask the court to refer to the notes section in the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim. Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please, do tell me. Presumably the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death.
Well,
under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that's most certainly unusual, yes.
what are you doing, you yokel detective?
In the newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death.
What?
If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor Ouchie, I think you'll agree. This is very compelling evidence.
You, yokel student and yokel professor!
So she walked in. She's like, knife in your back. Pupils are constricted, which I know means that you've been poisoned and that the poison is already affecting you. Therefore, I pulled out the knife to prevent the poison from getting into you. so that you won't be affected by it. But you're already affected by it. It's such a weird... I mean, maybe this is just a one-off and it's just this one case where they're like, we couldn't think of any good I don't know. I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions. No! Eugene Mikotoba. Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you're best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. You mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say. Ha! Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft and secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper. I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision. Father. A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students rather than allowing them off on killing sprees. That's totally unfounded. Oh, it's just you. None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray. Mbami-san, you stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. An outburst like that is nearly 5% of a perjury. But it was me. I was the one who noticed that the poison we were developing had been stolen that day. What? So you knew? I've been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that the professor and Soseki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was. Why didn't you let me know immediately? I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea of who the thief was. Don't say it. The thief? You don't mean... Yes, of course. It was that dainty English woman. Miss Giselle Brett? That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. Ooh, hoo, 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 hoo. Like that. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well, now. Well, oh, what was... Did I give her a terrible voice? Probably. I'll check later. Well, now, whatever do you mean? And then, she suddenly got to her feet before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw the knife in her back. What? She was hanging out in the thing with a knife in her back already? I couldn't understand what had just happened, and then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they'd shrunk to tiny pinpoints. I don't believe it. In other words, you realized that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips whilst I'd been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. On the blade of the knife in her back. Well, is there a knife hole in the back of the tent? Someone stabbed her through the back of the tent? That train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes. If the amount that had entered her bloodstream was small enough, you're You're not a doctor. You can't decide that. That's what I hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time. This is weird.
Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you confessed in the end.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Bonk. Barely perceptible that I do think the balance is shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection!
Oh, you didn't think so.
Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Membani-san, if that is the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed? You have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you?
Oh, I have evidence, and it is very much conclusive.
What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it.
You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Auchi. Perhaps some praise is due, young yokel student.
What?
You actually made me use 10% of my prosecutorial power. I had imagined there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you brought this on yourself.
What the?
Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty on the air on that beach is almost palpable. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature. For it shows the precise moment that Membani-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back, even though cameras take like 5 minutes to take a picture in our current time period.
No, that's not true. I don't believe it. Ah! Unfortunately, there was a poisoned knife in the wall, and it is now in my back. I will die in mere minutes.
Order, order, order. Counsel for the defense. Was it you who was responsible for that chill scream that just pierced my courtroom?
We're gonna get found out.
Perhaps his voice is yet to break. These yokels are slow of mind and slow to mature.
I'll show you who's slow to mature.
Careful now. Susato is starting to show her face here. It's often said that a picture is worth 1,000 kanji. And here we have ample proof. The court will now accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence.
And I think it's a bit short. Usually 3-hour stream. I think I'm just going to do 2 hours today. So we will wrap up here and resume on Thursday with more of Case 1. Probably finishing it in that one day, as usually Case 1 isn't terribly long. Although we'll see, maybe if I run into a bunch more roadblocks like we had there, where I just did not see what they were saying. Because, I mean, the idea that, oh, if someone has a poisoned knife sticking in their back and they're displaying symptoms of being poisoned, you should pull the knife out to prevent more poison from getting into their body. Seems very silly, but we're past it now. We'll let it go. So thank you for being here, guys. Hope you're enjoying the game so far. More of it on Thursday and for every day to come, except for days that I don't stream. Good night.